Touka X Kaneki sitting in a tree. Kissing. And they're going to be doing a lot more than kissing if it escalates to the level that everyone is predicting it to be. Did you guys just hear that? I think Tumblr just had an orgasm. How is it going, guys? I am back with my review on Tokyo Ghoul chapter 121, and it was entitled One Will Hang. Now, this chapter right here, I know a lot of people are just going to be talking about, speculating, and theorizing certain events that take place within this chapter. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to be talking about that Kaneki x Touka moment right at the end, but I think there's a lot more information that has to be talked about within this chapter. I will get to the Touka x Kaneki stuff, because I mean, that's got like a big thing to talk about, but there's other important information that we should also talk about, because the Furuta moment within this chapter, oh boy, there's a lot going on in my mind about that section, and I'm just like theorizing and speculating. A lot of thoughts have popped into my mind of what this could actually mean and the ramifications that could come about with like bringing people back to life. Like, oh man, there's so much to talk about in that section of this chapter. So this is going to be like a review / discussion video. It's going to be more laid back. I have like my water right here in case I get thirsty, but I just want to like go right through this chapter. I have the chapter up with me right now, so follow along with me, just bring the chapter up, and along this way I'm also going to be talking about like past events, like past chapters back in part 1 and part 2 that like correlates to the events of this chapter. I took some time just to like backlog and just look at all that stuff, so without further ado, let's just dive headfirst into this chapter, because man oh man, it starts off with a bang, because we start off with that Kaneki and Akira moment to where they're finally having that conversation that Akira kind of like, you know, made Kaneki buzz off earlier on, like 2 or 3 chapters ago, and they're finally talking about the events that happened last chapter with Akira, you know, talking with Hinami and Touka, her actually hugging like the ghoul children, but also Hinami as well. And I just got to talk about this again. I brought this up in my live reaction too, but when she goes, Kaneki asks, did she say anything? And Akira goes, she touched me. I'm like, Akira, phrasing right now, because she touched me can mean a lot of things. So she went in to hug you. Saying she just touched me is like something's like, whoa, Akira, slow down there. So that happened in this chapter, and they just go about talking about how Akira's meaning in life is kind of like in disarray right now. She doesn't really know what to do. Her whole life has been basically in pursuit of hunting ghouls and avenging her father in a way. And right now, she's having this battle within her where she doesn't really know what she has to do right now. She doesn't view ghouls as the enemy anymore, judging by the fact that she saw these ghoul children, but also Touka and Hinami and how they interacted with her. So right now, she's kind of at a bypass, at a fork in the road, and to like where she's going to go into the future for her future in life, and she just doesn't really know right now. And she's talking with, you know, Kaneki at this moment, and you know, she was basically saying like, I'm empty, no one else is here. And Kaneki ends up saying to her, well, I'm here, I've been there for you, you have been there for me. And like, she's like, well, you're no longer Heise. And Kaneki is puzzled by this, because he's like, well, I still remember everything. And, you know, he starts talking about his memories with Akira, how, like, she was the first person to actually teach him how to use a quinque, and how everything about investigating and having the mindset of an investigator came from Akira and was instilled in Heise / Kaneki. And so then she ends up telling him, like, going through this whole monologue about how, yes, but you were Heise in that moment. And for a lot of people, names and symbols, we attach ourselves to them very, very well. And right now, you are Ken Kaneki. You may not act and have the same name as Heise Sasaki, but when I look back on those memories and in those moments, you were Heise Sasaki. And it affects a person in a way too, because right now she's looking at Kaneki, and it's like, that's not the name that I know you as, and that's not the personality that I know you have. So it's kind of like messing her up in a way in her head when she kind of has to look at Kaneki. But I love how at this moment, Kaneki's kind of like asking her, it's like, well, is it because I'm not Heise anymore? And then this is where we get the famous moment that I noticed right away, to where she gives that famous Mato punch to Kaneki's stomach. And I immediately saw this panel and was like, this looks exactly like another panel in the early chapters of Tokyo Ghoul. So I went back to the early chapters of Tokyo Ghoul, and I actually did find it in chapter 2, where I'm going to bring this up right now. You probably won't see my face right now, but in this picture right here, you can see chapter 2 of Tokyo Ghoul, but then also the latest chapter. They look exactly the same. The one in chapter 2 looks a little bit more dynamic, but if you look at Akira's facial expressions, looks exactly the same. Kaneki / Heise's facial expressions look exactly the same, the way it's positioned and everything. So I like this parallel that Ishida kind of did with chapter 2 and chapter 121. Very cool right there. I thought this was very cool, and I noticed it like that. I was like, that is very similar to a panel I remember reading back in the early parts of Tokyo Ghoul. I like seeing that come back, and this is kind of like Akira's way of kind of like showing Heise / Kaneki her affection towards him, because in the earlier parts, she was kind of just, tasked to be the mother figure to Heise, guide him, and then eventually developed, these motherly type feelings to the subordinate that she was actually, rising through the CCG ranks. And so without her actually, coming out and saying, hey, you're doing a good job, or you're like, hey, can I have a hug? She did this to him to try to like stir him in the right direction. And it goes back to even the saying that Kaneki gave, to where everyone in his life that has loved him, or anyone that he has ever loved, has ended up hurting him in the end. And right here we have a prime example of that, to where Akira, delivers that gut punch to Kaneki, and it rings true right here too, because Kaneki is being hurt by someone he cares about a lot, and it's just something that has happened within his life time and time again. But I love how, like, after she punches him, she's just like, stand up straight. Kaneki addresses him by his real name, and then ends up saying, there's a part of you I was really fond of. And this is a really good moment to where she's just saying goodbye for right now. Hopefully not forever, just for right now. And then we end with this, 2 panels of Kaneki and Akira's face, with Kaneki saying, hey, Akira, I'm so lonely, and then Akira saying, me too. So those right there are some very good moments right there for the beginning of this chapter. But then we get into another good chapter that I know a lot of people are going to be praising, and just like all the fangirls of this chapter is going to be like loving this, not only with Touka and Kaneki, but also Amon and Akira. So we dive right into the Amon and Akira conversation, and I love this part too, because I love how Amon is just like coming up to her, and Akira is like, hey, I'm going out for food. Even though like I'm wanted by, the CCG and I shouldn't be out right now, let's go get some food. But then I actually didn't realize in my first viewing of this chapter, but I totally forgot that like Amon's a half ghoul right now. He actually can't eat normal food. He can only eat, human meat right now. And so Akira actually ends up realizing this, and then ends up, making a joke out of it, saying like, oh, I don't think you want to have curry. You like sweet food more, don't you? So she ends up realizing her mistake and tries to make a joke out of it. And they end up like, having a little like laugh about this too. But then Akira starts to open up to Amon about her current predicament, how her whole meaning in life is now askew, because she doesn't really know what she should do for the future of her life, because this hatred that she's had for the ghouls is no longer there due to the events of last chapter. And so she can't go back to the CCG. She doesn't have a future there. So what is she supposed to do with this emptiness and loneliness that she now has in her life? And I love how Amon just comes right for her, is basically like trying to lift her spirit, saying like, well, you're alive. That accounts for something right there. And she's just like, oh, those are easy words to say, but like, what is truly saying we're alive? And so then Amon comes in clutch right here, just basically telling her it's like he was in the same predicament too, because he went through a traumatic experience of being turned into a half ghoul and having to deal with the fact that he was no longer a ghoul investigator and was now a half ghoul, and had to deal with the fact that he cannot eat normal foods. He can only eat humans. Like, his life forever changed at that moment. But he's come out of that darkness and is now looking on the brighter side of life. And then as like he's talking with Akira about this, he just grabs her by the waist, and he's just like, I'll support you by your side. And I know a lot of people on page 10 right now, when they saw this, they were like, is it going to happen? Is this going to happen? Because I had to go back to Tokyo Ghoul Part 1 to see when like the similar event that happened back then, and it was in chapter 124 around pages 11 and 14. And so when I turned the page and saw what was that happened, like her saying next time don't dodge, and they actually go in to like actually kiss, this was an event that was leading up ever since the beginnings of Part 1, when Mado and Akira first met up. And we know that Akira has had feelings for Amon, but it wasn't until now that they've actually finally closed it on that, and finally gave the fans what they kind of been wanting. They don't show it, but we know what's going on in this panel right now with the way that Ishida has drawn it, and Right now, anyone that is like shipping Amon and Akira is going to be very, very happy right now. And then we're going to get to the other ship later on. But I think that this was just such a good moment and kind of like, you know, finalized the events that took place in part 1. And everyone else is just very happy right now to see this finally have some closure. And we can kind of close the book on this story thread right now and move on to what's to come, which I think is going to be a lot of tragedy. We also get some events with the QS squad, you know, finally realizing that Furuta has actually been lying the whole time. There isn't really much to dive into this section of the chapter, but I love the fact that Suzuya and Ito show up, and these two are the ones that have been suspecting Furuta's lies ever since they saw the execution, the public execution of Heisei Sasaki. And that the fact that they actually can see through the deception and the lies, and they're coming to the QS squad to basically say, yeah, the person that was killed in front of us all, that was not Heisei. That was not him at all. And I love the comedic relief of Psycho because she just overhears this conversation of them saying, yeah, Heisei's not dead. She comes busting into the room and is like very dramatic about it. And it's like, so wait, Mamon's not dead? And like, I love Urei's interaction with her too, because she just looks up and he says, nope. She ends up crying and is very happy, like so glad to actually hear the fact that Heisei is in fact not dead. And you actually see Urei smiling, which I cannot remember ever seeing Urei smile throughout Tokyo Ghoul. So it just goes to show his character development has been tremendous, because this character was hated in the beginning parts of Tokyo Ghoul. Everyone in the fandom hated him, and throughout, as the chapters came out and we gotten further and further along in the Tokyo Ghoul story, people actually started to come around to him, and he started developing into a really cool and supportive character where we can actually get behind, and we're like, yes, Urei, go do that. You do that right there. So it's very nice to see his character development as it goes on, and that everyone within the QS squad, along with Suzuya and Ito, are finally like realizing the deception and lies that Furuta, being the new bureau chief, has been like spewing down to everyone within the CCG. But this right here is the meat of the chapter that I really want to dive into, because we have Furuta and Ui, you know, actually meeting with Kano, which baffles me with the fact that Ui is even okay with this, like having Kano within their ranks, because he's been against them and a part of Ogiri Tree since like the beginnings, like my god. But the whole events that take place within this chapter deals with the fact that Furuta, I gotta breeze through this chapter, here we go, page 16. Furuta has Hairu's head in a jar. I saw this and was like, what the hell is Furuta doing? Like, why does he have Hairu's head in a jar? She has been gone for at least like 70 chapters about right now, because I remember, and I even wrote this down, that Hairu died in chapter 49 of Tokyo Ghoul on page 16. Has not been seen since, and it always struck me as odd that she died within the Rose-Wald investigation arc, because she was built up and hyped up so much as a character that when she died, I was like, wait, really? All this hype up and all the hyped moments to come with Hairu are just done like that? And this right here brings back that hype that was lost in those chapters way back when, and now Hairu is now possibly a team player and is going to be rejoining like everything, and this just baffles me right now. Excuse me. Ugh. So Hairu coming back as a possibility, and the fact that people that have died could possibly come back, and Furuta saying to Ui, what if she were to come back to life? We've got her body too. So this right here raises a lot of questions for me, because will this end up being a clone, or are they actually going to bring her back to life? My best bet is that this is going to be a clone of Hairu. It's like the best option right now, unless they do actually bring her back to where she actually has all of her memories of the past Hairu, you know, that passed off and died. But then this brings up the question is, if they're able to bring back Hairu, what's to stop them from bringing back other characters that have died? And the first person that I actually thought of during my live reaction was Shirazu. Shirazu died back in chapter 55 of the same arc, and he has been gone since, and I know a lot of people have been upset since he died, and with the possibility of him coming back raises a lot of questions, and that would just like basically like put like a little like monkey wrench into all the events, because Shirazu coming back would affect not only like Kaneki, it would affect all of the QS squad that, you know, has a personal relationship with him. Urei, Mitsuki, Psycho, like this would be like crazy thing to happen if Shirazu ever did come back into the story of Tokyo Ghoul. But then this also brings up, like, what if Gagi and Gugi, Naki's twin subordinates that would always protect him and guard him? Kano said that he would bring him back to life, but we haven't seen anything like, you know, manifest from what he said of that. Could we see them actually pop up again in a future arc of Tokyo Ghoul Re? And then, this is what I thought of like immediately right before I started making this video. What if? Now, this is a what if. What if Arima was somehow to be cloned or brought back to life? Like, what if Furuta has Arima's body, and then we have the God Reaper himself of the CCG return to form, and that would be, like, insane if that happened. Like, I was thinking, like, this has so many possibilities to it that this could bring back so many characters that have already died within Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re, and Furuta would have them as underlings within his ranks as he's leading this newfound CCG against Kaneki and Goat. Like, this would be insane. So there's so much to digest just with the Furuta part alone. And then the last two parts of this chapter, Mitsuki and we have Kuroiwa. I always pronounce his name like very weirdly. It's just, forgive me if I do that, but we have this event that I thought, like, since that got brought up, like before even the clown arc started with Yoriko's wedding proposal with Kuroiwa, and you know the whole thing with searching for Touka, I was wondering when this was going to come back, and it came back this chapter. And of course, Kuroiwa is asking Mitsuki to find Touka, and we already know how Mitsuki feels about Touka. She wants to kill her because she has stolen the heart of her man, of Sasaki, you know, slash Kaneki, and she is going to be hell-bent on trying to eradicate Touka from the face of the earth, and she wants to keep the photo so that way now she has a vendetta against Touka. And I can just feel right now this conversation arc we've been having within Tokyo Ghoul Re has so many happy moments, so many fulfilling moments, that tragedy is gonna strike, and it's gonna strike big. And Ishida right now is just basically, you know, he's got it all planned out right now, and he's probably just sitting as he's like drawing all of these chapters like, oh man, these people are so fucked right now. They have no idea what is coming, because Tokyo Ghoul is a tragedy manga, and we know that tragedy strikes hard when Ishida is writing and drawing this manga, and it is going to be coming full force at the end of this arc, and I just don't know what the hell is going to be happening, but I just can't wait for it, because the tragedy, oh man, the tears of all the fans was going to be so delicious. I can't wait for it. But moving on to a happier subject before I end this review of the chapter, this is probably what everyone is going to be talking about for this chapter. Touka has dyed her hair. She's now back to the part 1 look that she had of her natural hair color. She's talking with Kaneki, and, you know, Kaneki's looking at her and he's like, oh, this is very nostalgic. I like the hair color. And, you know, he's talking with her about certain things, about organizations and information, and about how the CCG was almost eradicated by a one-eyed ghoul in the past. And this is very interesting. So then, as he's talking with Touka, he ends up bringing up, you know, oh, Touka, you wanted to talk to me about something. What was it? And I was not expecting this to come out of Touka's mouth. And she's just like, oh yeah, are you a virgin? I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, Touka, what? What? And I love Kaneki's look right here, because he's just looking at her. You can tell he's shocked, because he has his coffee in his hand and it's just spilling out of the mug. He's just looking at her, and I love the dialogue. It's just like, are you a virgin? And then on the side here it says something she's wanted to ask for a long time. And so this has been built up, I feel like, since the beginning of Tokyo Ghoul. You can kind of get inklings here and there through part 1 that Touka had feelings for Kaneki, and she was just that like type of character. Whenever she was around Kaneki, would act tough and would, you know, always be angry towards him, just trying to suppress her feelings. And so that way it wouldn't really show when she would be talking with Kaneki during those early parts of Tokyo Ghoul. But then once the whole thing happened, you know, with Jason and the Ogiri Tree raid in the middle parts of part 1, you could definitely tell that Touka had some type of feelings for Kaneki, and those just started to build and build till the endings of part 1, and then the reintroduction of Touka in, you know, Re, and just seeing how, like, you know, she was just so nice to Heise whenever she saw him. You could tell that she had feelings for this man. Like, she is definitely wanting Kaneki right now, and just the fact that she's being so blunt about it and just basically like doesn't even work into the conversation, just basically blurts out, yeah, are you a virgin? It's like, that's not something you just come blurting out talking to a person. And right now, I am really excited to see what are going to be the first words of this conversation that Kaneki is going to be telling Touka, because I think that Chibi Reviews put it best in his live reaction when he actually like talked about this and saw this. Kaneki has been fucked by life and possibly Jason. And now the whole Jason thing is very, you know, no, it doesn't really tell us outright that Jason possibly raped Kaneki back during, his torture scenes in the early parts of Tokyo Ghoul. But it was very much implied, and I think a lot of people within the fandom could come to the conclusion that, yeah, most likely Kaneki was raped and tortured by Yamori/Jason. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this conversation unfolds. And just with the events of Mutsuki right now on the warpath to find Touka, and it seems like from this that Touka wants to be the baby mama of Kaneki. So there's just so much that goes into this last little dialogue for this chapter. And so many people are going to be looking forward to the next chapter to come out. Chapter 122. I swear, this is going to Ishida right now. I'm talking to Ishida directly. He doesn't even watch these videos of mine. I don't even care. But Ishida, do not blue ball us on this conversation. I know he's been doing that here and there with a lot of the conversations. Don't go away from this. I want to see this conversation unfold. I want to see Kaneki's reaction and what is going to be the first words he says to Touka to the dialogue of her saying, "Are you a virgin?" This just gets me so excited to see what's going to be popping up in the next chapter, and I swear we better not get blue balled on this. But overall, chapter 121 of Tokyo Ghoul, very enjoyable. It leaves me to speculate on a whole bunch of things, especially with Furuta now with the ability to possibly resurrect the dead, whether that be actually to resurrect them to where they actually have their memories, or to clone them to have the same look but not have the memories of the person that had passed. But then also we have the Amon and Akira moment, and then the Kaneki x Touka moment. So I want to hear your thoughts on this whole events of this chapter. What do you think of the whole Furuta stuff that I brought up within this chapter? That's one thing I definitely want to hear your thoughts on. And who would you like to see from a character that has already died? Who would you like to see pop up again as either a clone or as a resurrected person within the future arcs to come of Tokyo Ghoul? And how did you feel about the Amon and Akira moment in the middle of this chapter? And of course, the Kaneki and Touka moment to where she just asked him, "Are you a virgin?" This is just crazy. I'm like, oh my god. Woo! Kaneki x Touka right now. I don't really ship characters, but damn. I would be okay with this right here. I would definitely be okay. So that's the end of this review, guys. I am so looking forward to chapter 122. Again, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you guys have not seen my live reaction, there's going to be a link to it at the end of this video, or you can find it at the end in my channel somewhere. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. But anyway, guys, for this review. I look forward to talking with you guys in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a great day or night and have a great tomorrow. I will talk with you guys in the next Tokyo Ghoul chapter. And until then, I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.